Welcome to Preparing for State Assessment using Get More Math. I'm Jennifer Axtons and I'm one of the trainers. Some of the other members of the training team have joined us today too, so they'll be able to answer your questions. And that's what I want to make sure before we get started. If you have any questions today, over in the lower right-hand side, you have the ability to ask questions. If you're on a mobile device, you may have to swipe over in order to ask questions. But the other training team members are going to answer questions as we go along, and then maybe I'll answer some also aloud at the end. But anyway, I am glad you've joined us, so let's get started. I think as teachers, we always want our students to walk into that testing room prepared, full of confidence, right? Let's talk about how we do that. We're going to focus on 3 ways today. We're going to talk about the power of mixed review points, the power of a purposeful mixed review, and the power of cumulative exams. Now, the heart of Get More Math is mixed review, right? It's the spiral review. Your students who are earning points in mixed review, they're leveling up the colors of their squares, right? They've got green squares, silver stars, gold stars. Those students that have green, silver, gold, those are your confident students. They're the students who remember how to solve those problems. Remember a red square? That indicates a student has some brand new content or they're struggling with that particular content, the color of that square being red. Now, on the very first day that your students practice a skill, the highest color they can level up to is yellow. Yellow is the color of initial understanding. On the very first day that your students practice, it's that built-in exit ticket. So, on the second day that your students practice a skill, the highest color they can still get, even if they answer every single problem correctly, the highest color they can get is yellow on that second day. It's not until your students have been practicing a skill for at least 3 days that they can level up to green. It's when your students have been practicing a skill for at least 5 days, they can level up to silver star. Silver star is great, right? When your students have been practicing for a minimum of 7 days, they can level up to gold star. Once your students have leveled up to green, to silver, to gold, they've demonstrated proficiency. These are the students who remember how to solve problems. They've broken the forgetting cycle. So those mixed review points are important. I want you to look at my subtitle there. It says mixed review points, and I keep saying that. I'm not saying spend time in mixed review. I'm talking about points in mixed review. When your students earn a point, they solve that $ problem correctly on the first try. Anytime a student makes a mistake, they have to fix that mistake. They have to correct their misconception. And in Get More Math, when they make that mistake, they're going to fix that mistake and show growth, right? When a student makes that mistake, we're expecting that our students are going to make a mistake as they're solving problems. It even helps us identify as teachers what our students don't know. Of course, when they make a mistake and Get More Math, they have a red outline around that square. What we want for our students to do is to clear up any misconception that they have when they have a red outline. Well, how do they do that, right? They check their notes. They can check with their neighbor because in Get More Math, those problems are dynamically generated, so your students don't have the same problems as one another. Or what's the other thing they have to do? They have to check with you. You help them correct that misconception. They fix that mistake and they get rid of that red outline. Then in Get More Math, we give them a fresh problem, another opportunity to earn the point. When your students solve that fresh problem correctly, they're showing growth. I'll tell you what else happens to students when they have to fix mistakes. If they have to, fix that mistake and solve a fresh problem, I've seen it happen in classrooms. Students begin to slow down and check their work. Students who check their work on state assessment, those are the students who are in the habit of doing that in class. That's a win, right? So we want our students to fix those mistakes. But I also want you to think about letting the $ do the work for you. I didn't have Get More Math in my classroom. And so I spent so much time, I would group kids, right? Had this group and this group and this other group. And then I had to worry about what this group was practicing, making sure this group was practicing something. You don't have to work that hard. In Get More Math, I want you to let the dollar sign do that work for you. That dollar sign, let me tell you what, did you know that every single time your students answer a problem, Get More Math is tracking exactly how long it is before we put that dollar sign on there again. If a student makes a mistake, they're going to have to fix the mistake, right? And then solve the fresh problem. If the student's already demonstrated proficiency, I mean, they're green, they're silver, they're gold. If they answer those problems correctly, Get More Math's calculating how long before we place the dollar sign on that problem again. You want to let that dollar sign prioritize. That dollar sign's already prioritizing their practice. You want to let it work for you. All right. Every time that students have brand new skills or they're still learning something, red and yellow squares, did you know that dollar sign is there more frequently so that your students have to build up the understanding of the content? So yellow is still where that frequently is being placed. Once your students have leveled up to green, to silver, to gold, Get More Math still occasionally makes your students practice that content so that they can maintain that mastery of that content. Look at these two student screens. They're in the very same class. They have the same number of squares on their screens. Student 2 has a lot more red and yellow, where student 1 has some green, some silver, some gold. These two students know where they are with every single skill for the year based on the color of their squares. Their parents looking over their shoulder know what they understand and what they don't. Their dollar signs are also in different places. Get More Math knows what each student needs to practice and puts the dollar sign where they need to practice. And these two students don't have it, but if the students had a dollar sign on the very same square, because the problems are dynamically generated, they wouldn't even have the same problems as one another, so they could truly help one another. That dollar sign is prioritizing the practice. It's individualizing it for every student that you have. You don't have to work and make all those groups and track everything like I had to do. That dollar sign is working for you, the teacher. So let's talk about, if these points in mixed review are so important, how can we make sure our students are earning mixed review points? Let me jump over here to my teacher account. Now, if I'm over here and I'm looking at my teacher account, the best tip that I have for you, I want you to start class every day with mixed review. Why would you even do that? Why should mixed review be your bell ringer, your warm up? Because of the dollar sign, right? Here's a student in this class. See where their dollar signs are? Look at another student in the same class. Dollar signs are in different places. Each student, if they start class in mixed review every day, they have an individualized bell ringer. What could be better than that? Every student practicing exactly what they need to. But you, the teacher, you can tell the students, we're going to do this warm up in mixed review, and I can check on current status. My students are in mixed review. The other thing I can do is I'm on sixth period right here. I want to check my icons. Do you see the icon for sixth period? It's green. That means this class is in mixed review. I also could go so far as to go to my assignments and I could turn off any available assignments. Now, if a student's already completed it, they're not going to be able to go back there anyway. But if they haven't completed it, I don't want them to do it during this warm-up time. So I can turn off those other assignments. I can turn them back on later if I need them. But that way, look what happens to my students. Change assignment button. It graded out for each of those students. That means they're going to be forced in this warm-up to practice in mixed review, exactly where that dollar sign is. That's the best tip to make sure you start that class strong. The next tip I have to ensure that students are earning points in mixed review, listen, right here, top of this gray column, you see it says set daily goal. It's even in a different colored font. That's on purpose. We are trying to draw your attention to it. It's like, do this every day. Do this every day. Set a goal every day. You just click it and you're going to choose the number of points that you expect your students to earn every day. Let's think about how this class is going, right? I started class in mixed review. Now I'm going to teach my new material. I'm going to go over here to work. I've got this assignment called New Assignment. Now, I've got all my assignments made. I have them ready to go. I'm going to make sure that I model for my students. You're thinking right now, what's she talking about modeling? We're talking about mixed review points. I am. I'm talking about mixed review points because I want to model for my students how to solve the problems as well as how to input their answers. I want when my students get stuck during class to be on how not to answer the problem, not how to input the answer, right? So how are you going to do that? I'm in my new assignment. There's a couple of ways. Get more math. You can always print a worksheet, right? Remember, if you generate this PDF, the answer key's at the end. But what I could do is I could print that worksheet. I could take that copy and I could put it on my document camera, take my notes, show my students how to solve these problems. I could even scan those notes, save them later for my students. That's one of the ways that I could model. Lots of folks use the preview button because it's right there beside the assign button. You've seen it, right? Everybody's clicked on this preview button just even to see what the assignment looks like. But you could also project this. And maybe if I had lower level students, lower grade level students, I may want this screen because it looks exactly like the student screens. They can see these problems. I could show them how to solve them and how to input their answers. So those are two of the ways. I could print and I could use the preview button. There's a button I love way more. Right down here, I've included 2 skills in this assignment. I'm going to click to expand one of these skills, and I'm going to look at this sample problem. You see this full screen button? This button is ever so handy, and I would encourage you to think about using this button to model for your students. Couple of reasons. I have the answer available to me. I like that feature. Also, I have that cycle button here. I can cycle through unlimited examples. I am not using up my students' problems. I am using these examples and I can go to the other blue hexagon, that other skill in this assignment. I can show my students how to solve those problems and how to input their answers. All right, so now start at that class in mixed review. I've modeled for the kids using one of these 3 ways. Then I'm going to click assign. When I know my students are ready for independent practice, that's the moment I click that assign button. We're going to give it to that 6th period class, same one that we were looking at. And the moment I click assign, of course, that assignment's in front of the students. And what else did I do? Of course, I added those skills to mixed review. That's the best thing that happens. I added those skills to mixed review. Now, I gave that assignment to the class. Of course, it changed the students, what they're working on, right? Changed their problems. They're working on that assignment. You can see that they have that assignment in front of them. So as my class is working, what else did I say I want to do? I told you that important thing, right? We're going to set that daily goal. But what did that assignment have to do with the goal? Well, let's jump back over there and I'll show you. That new assignment, it has 6 points in it. I am going to double that. And that's the beginning point for my goal. I might make my goal higher than 12 points, but I'm at least going to use 12 points as my goal, because I need my students to earn just as many points in mixed review. Remember, we're talking about mixed review points. So I want my students to earn just as many points in mixed review. So I'm going to set that goal at 12 points. Here's that goal right up here at the top. I'm going to set that goal at 12 points. I'm going to save it. It's saved for me right up here at the top. I can see that I did that. Now that icon's still purple now because I gave that new assignment. Students are working. I'm watching them on current status. Can they even tell that I set that goal at 12 points? Do they even know? They do. Students can see on their screens. This student's earned 10 points already, so he has 2 points remaining to meet the goal. This student earned 5 points, so they have 7 points remaining to meet the goal. Your students see what your expectation is. Some of you are probably thinking, oh, but I didn't give an assignment today. I didn't give a brand new assignment. Should I still set a goal? You bet. Every day you want to set a goal. Set the expectation for your class. Because what if the student was absent one day? They can click their calendars. Any student can click their calendar from their student menu, and they can see in green the goal that you set for each of those days. In purple, they can see how many points they've earned, and in blue, the errors they fixed. I want you to take a look at January 9th. I set a goal of 12 points, and this student did not earn any points. Perhaps the student was absent because take a look at January 10th. I set a goal of 12 points and the student earned 35 points on that day. The student was making up the points that they missed from the day they were absent. They can check their calendars and see. They can show their parents that they've met your expectations. Always keep in mind that when you're setting that goal, that your students can see that expectation. All right. So now class is kind of moving along. We're getting towards the end of class. Now what do I want to do? The next thing I want to do is switch this class to mixed review. That icon's purple. All right. I want a green icon. I want to finish the class strong. I want to switch the class to mixed review. Do you see how it's changing now that those students are going to be pushed into mixed review? Somebody right now though is going, those kids did not finish that assignment. I need them to finish that assignment. Where are the skills though from that assignment? Take a look at this student's screen. Earlier when we were looking at mixed review, this student didn't have any red squares, right? Here's that brand new content. Where's the dollar sign? The dollar sign's working for you. The student is going to have to practice that brand new content anyway. So even if they don't complete that assignment, they're still going to have to work on those skills in mixed review. Now, what does that button do? Switch to mixed review. How does that help me? Well, remember, tomorrow at the beginning of class, I want everybody in mixed review. I want them to start the next day strong in mixed review, so they have that individualized bell ringer. It also, if I make students work at home, if my students work at home and they're online and I'm not, and they're in mixed review, remember they're going to have skips available to them. They're not going to get stuck like they would in an assignment. So they can always change assignment and go back to an incomplete assignment. But mixed review is really where you want them to be. All right. Now, I set a goal. I told you we started in mixed review, and I want to set a goal every day. I want to set an expectation that includes mixed review points. How am I going to make sure the kids did it, right? How am I going to see that? Go down to points history, all right? This also, quick tip, here's the fastest way to take a grade. If you're going to take grades out of Get More Math, here's the quickest way to do it. You set an expectation. I set an expectation yesterday of 12 points. Every student who earned 12 points makes 100. Because to earn 12 points, what did my students have to do? They had to solve 12 problems correctly on the first try. Did they have to fix some mistakes? I can even go and see. I can click that drop down and I can see how many errors they fixed. Casey earned 12 points, but he also fixed 5 mistakes. So I can see that. What if I'm that person that only takes my grades once a week? Just go up here and change the range of dates and go look at last week's scores. Make sure that your students have met your expectation. Quickest way. I don't have to go back and see, oh, they missed that assignment. They did this. If you're setting that goal every day, you've already told the students what the expectation is. They can see it on their calendars too. But you're also going to need to do one more thing. You're going to go to mixed review. I'm going to look at my mixed review. And I'm going to order, of course, by date added. If yours is not ordered by date added, you want to put the most recent skills at the top to do this. At the end of class every day, maybe at the end of the day, I want to make sure those students got my exit ticket. I said that earlier, right? They leveled the colors up to the squares up to yellow. If I could talk, we'd be doing pretty good, right? They've leveled up from red to yellow. Let's go look at some skills. My students haven't practiced yet. Y'all watch me. My students haven't practiced yet. But let's go look at a skill I've added previously. Everybody's leveled up to yellow. Some of these students have even moved to green. I want to make sure that my students, now I added this skill on the 12th, but if I'd added this skill yesterday, I would want to make sure that everyone was yellow on that skill. Making sure they got my exit ticket. They have initial understanding of the concept. Let me take a look at a skill. Let me show you a skill where I don't. Here's a skill where I have some students who are yellow. And look at this skill, y'all. I added it on the 10th of January. It's been active long enough that some of my students have leveled up to green. Some students are still yellow. Maybe they just haven't practiced enough yet to get to green. I have one student who's still red, and I have one student who's untried. Are you looking at your data? Do you have any students who have untried? That would be concerning to me. Unless the student was absent and hasn't returned to school yet. That would be the only reason that someone should still be untried. Otherwise, I definitely to make sure that my students are earning points in mixed review. Now, What if you see this data? What if you look at something like this? This is maybe the skill that we taught yesterday. Well, they wouldn't have the kids that are green, but this is a skill that I've recently taught. And I think I want to do some remediation for these 4 students. Anya's back at school and these other students are still red and yellow. In the past, I would have thought, oh, now I need to do some remediation. I need to go find something to do that remediation with. Don't work that hard. Listen, Get More Math's got you covered right here too. Click right up above. See where it said untried. Click right up there where I can see that sample problem. Remember I said that full screen button was so important? That's because it's over here in your data. It's in your class data, your student data, your exam data. I'm going to project this. All I did was I clicked that problem. I saw the sample problem. I clicked full screen, and I'm going to bring those 4 kids into a small group. And I'm going to have them with pencil and paper. They're going to work with dry erase boards. Maybe I don't even project it on the board. Maybe I just open my device there at the table. And I'm going to have these students practice these sample problems. Now, here's where I'm going to let that dollar sign work for me. Because those students are still red and yellow, where their dollar sign's going to be, they're going to have to practice those skills. So when they go back to their devices, they're going to have dollar signs on those skills, and they're going to have to practice those. And I'm going to expect that they level up. And all I'm going to do is come back here and check. While you're here, if you're over in your mixed review and you're taking a look, sort yours by date added. Put those most recent skills at the top. Now, I just added those today, right? But do you see what I'm doing? I didn't arrow back to go back here. I clicked on these percentages, and I'm just clicking and arrowing through. Do you know how to take a quick pulse for your class? This is the way to do it. You want to see how everybody's doing on any of the skills that you've taught? Just click, look at the proficiencies, and just arrow through. Do you see how now I've gotten to these skills? I've added these skills back in December. Most of my students have leveled these skills up to green, to silver, to gold. And that's what I would expect. The longer a skill has been active, the greater the proficiency should be. If that skill's been active very long, most of my students should be green, silver, and gold. I can even, if I wanted to click, I could order these proficiencies and even look at a skill. I could see those proficiencies and look at them in that way as well. So what did I say? What was I talking about here with ensuring that your students are earning these mixed review points? I said we wanted to start with mixed review. We want to model for our kids. We want to set that daily goal. We want to switch to mixed review. We want to check that they're, meeting our expectations and that the students are leveling up the colors of their squares. And you're thinking now, okay, so that's great. I've got a plan. But how could you motivate your students to earn points in mixed review? Get More Math has you covered there too. Click your teacher profile icon. Go to teacher resources. You've been to this page before. You've been over here. This is the same place we send you to grab that student guide, has the colors of the squares. I'm hoping you've been on this page and grabbed this student data worksheet. If you haven't, you want to check that out. But right now, I want you to focus on this third column. I want you to look at motivational lesson plans. There's all sorts of lesson plans here. If you want to run a point club, have a 500-point club, a 1,000-point club, 2,000-point club. There's some information here. You want to have a green club. You want your students to level up, get half of their squares to green or better, and continue to, change the colors of those squares. Here's a lesson plan for that. Math Madness, similar to March Madness. That would be applicable soon, right? Down at the very bottom, there's one called Secret Student. We just recently added this one. All of these, like I said, they came from teachers who shared them with us, and we're sharing them with y'all. This particular motivational lesson plan is about using mixed review as the warm-up, letting the dollar sign work for you, and then having your classes compete against one another or grade levels compete against one another. So if you haven't already, go and take a look at the motivational lesson plans. Those are all available to you. All right. So I was talking about starting the class with mixed review. I told you that's the best tip I have for you. Start strong with mixed review. And then I was talking about ending class with mixed review. It's called a mixed review sandwich. Some of you may have heard this term before. You start class, you end class with mixed review. If you give a new assignment, that's great. If you don't, you still Well, starting in with mixed review, right? So you're going to start class with mixed review because you have that individualized bell ringer. Everybody's got prioritized practice. Then you're going to model, if you're teaching brand new content, you're going to model from the small assignment to ensure that your students know how to solve the problems. They're ready for independent practice. Then you're going to give them that small assignment and you're going to set a daily goal. Now, take that assignment step out. If you didn't even give an assignment, you're still going to set a goal. You're going to set an expectation for the class. Then after the students have been working, you're getting close to the words end of class, you're going to click that switch to mixed review button so that you started that class strong and you're going to finish it strong in mixed review. Start the class in mixed review, model, then you give that assignment, and then finish strong with mixed review. That's how you ensure that your students are earning those points in mixed review. You might consider turning off any assignments during that warm-up time, but you want to set that goal. Think about the mixed review sandwich and take a look at those motivational strategies, because if you haven't already, I definitely want you to. Now, what's next? Let's talk about pruning mixed review. Mixed review points are the powerful points, right? They're the ones that break the forgetting cycle. But I want your mixed review to be purposeful. Have you looked at your mixed review lately? Let's jump over here and let's look at our mixed review. I'm going to click here. We were already over here a little bit ago. I had you order this by date added, and we put that most recent stuff at the top. That's probably how you normally have your mixed review because you're checking those proficiencies to make sure that students got those exit tickets. But I want you to reorder it, and I want you to put the oldest skills at the top. Here's where those proficiency numbers should be higher because these skills have been active a long time. See how I started my class in July? Way back when you first started your class, whether you started at the beginning of the school year or you started somewhere in the middle of this semester, you started at the beginning of the school year, very likely, with this mixed review starter bundle that Get More Math has. So I'm teaching Algebra 1 and Get More Math has that starter bundle for all of your students, right? The first day that they log in, they learned how the dollar sign works, how those red outlines work, what the smiley faces mean, all of those things, right? Are those starter bundle skills still active in your mixed review? Mine are. Do you need those starter bundle skills throughout the year? If I'm teaching Algebra 1, you know where those starter bundle skills came from? 7th or 8th grade. If I'm teaching 5th grade, those skills came from 3rd or 4th grade. Do I need those skills all year? Is that the state assessment my kids are taking? No. So if you haven't already pruned, deactivated those skills, that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to deactivate a skill. Do you see how if I had 40 active skills, if I click to deactivate a skill, now I only have 39 active skills. That's all you're going to do. You're going to take some of those skills out. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to look at your percent proficiency. Look, everybody's gold on this skill. Y'all, it's division math fact. I don't need that skill all year, so I deactivated it. Now I can arrow back, but you know what I was doing earlier, right? I was clicking on these, and then I was going to the next skill. Look at this one. Add positive integers. I have 100% of my students are proficient. It's really adding. I'm going to turn that skill off. And I'm going to use that arrow key, and I'm going to go to the next skill. It's another math fact. I see that 100% are proficient. Everybody's green, silver, and gold. That's, again, one of those starter bundle skills. I'm taking that out. You don't need all those skills. This one. Ooh. Now, this one looks like a math fact, too. Let's look at the problem. It's a math fact. I have one student who's still red. Everybody else is silver and gold. So here's the debate. Am I going to leave it turned on, or am I going to turn it off for the class? Perhaps use modified mixed review like Isla has and come back and just turn it back on for Isla. That's what I would opt for. I'm going to go to the next skill. Here's another case. So I'm going to turn it off for the class. It's rounding. We have bigger things to do for state assessment. So I'm going to turn that skill off. I'm going to think about turning it back on in that modified mixed review for this student. As you start to cycle through your skills, look at the problems themselves. If those skills resemble state assessment, even if all of your students are proficient, I'm not going to turn the skill off. If I look at a skill and I think, oh, 100% of my class is proficient, that one's not. Finding the absolute value like that is not. It's going to be embedded in an application level problem. I'm turning that skill off. And as you cycle through, look at your skills. Oh, look at this one. This one may happen on 4th grade assessment. I mean, 100% of my students are proficient, but this one resembles state assessment. I'm not deactivating that skill. So what I want you to do is, if you haven't already, Deactivate those mixed review starter bundle skills. And also, I want you to think about when you add your skills. Do you do this? You start at unit 1 and you added some skills in. Maybe the unit was going to be about adding fractions. So you put some skills in there with fractions with common denominators because you knew you were going to work up to the students finding the common denominators. Or you put some single step equations in because you knew the students were going to have to work on multi-step by the end of that unit. So you put those in there, those little building block kind of skills, building up the students' confidence, making sure they had those prerequisite skills. If you've added those skills all throughout the year, maybe you're now at unit 6, unit 7, unit 8. You probably want to think about going and deactivating some of those skills as well. And the way you decide what you want to leave is if it looks like state assessment, it's got to stay. And if it doesn't, I don't need it. I also want you to think about where you find your skills. I'm going to jump over here to work. And I'm in 4th grade. Where do you find your skills and add them to your assignments that then become a part of your mixed review? I'm going to tell y'all, I love topics. If I open up any of these folders and I open up the subfolders, I can see these problems and I can see how they look. And those folders and topics look so nice. But I'll tell you what you know about 4th grade topics. It's not just Indiana, the state that I'm on right now. It's everybody's topics. It's everybody's 4th grade. It's everything Get More Math has for 4th grade in topics. It's Indiana standards. It's Texas standards. It's California's. It's Pennsylvania's. It's everybody's 4th grade topics. If I want the skills that resemble state assessment, I need to go to my state folder. I need to open the standards and I need to look at those skills that look similar to state assessment. That's where I want to find my skills. So if you haven't used your state collection, I want to make sure that you know that it's there and that you're going and finding some skills there that resemble state assessment. So when are you going to prune up this mixed review? Well, if you haven't done it all year, I want you to think about doing it now. If you've already been doing that, then make sure you're keeping it purposeful all throughout the year. I want you to maybe order, again, by proficiency, because the longer the skill's been active, the greater their proficiency should be. Everybody here is 100%. Is this a skill that's on state assessment? If it is, leave it. If it's not, turn it off. So leave those ones that look like state assessment. While we're here, let's talk about the metrics too. I've been talking about proficiency. So you're looking at proficiency, you know the longer it's been active, the greater that proficiency should be. But how do you know your students have been earning points in mixed review? Take a look at your points distribution circle graph. If you haven't already, take a look at it. You can even hover over this and Get More Math tells you what it should look like. The green piece represents the points your students have earned in mixed review. The purple piece shows you how many points your students have earned in assignments. What do you want that circle graph to look like? You want the green piece to be equal to the purple piece. What does that mean? That means that your students are earning half their points in mixed review, and those are the valuable points for long-term retention. That's what makes sure your students are ready for that state assessment, right? If it's more purple, then your students are earning more points in assignments. You want to make sure you're doing what I said. You're setting that warm up. You're setting that daily goal. You're making sure your students are earning points in mixed review. For every one of your classes, take a quick glance at that circle graph and make sure the green is equal to the purple or the green is larger than the purple, like mine. Also, while you're there, take a look at your rotation time. Rotation time, if you hover over it, Get More Math will tell you what that is too. I have a rotation time of 11 days. That means that the median for my class is 11 days to correctly cycle through. Now I have 34 active skills. What do you want that number? You may be looking at yours right now thinking, oh, my number's higher than that. You want that number 30 days or less. That it's a median. Keep in mind, it's a median, but that means your students are correctly cycling through all of the content at least once a month. If you've pruned up this mixed review, you've made it purposeful. Now I want to make sure they're cycling through that mixed review. Ideally, you want it below 15 days, meaning they're cycling through every 2 weeks or so. But you got to start out with getting it under 30 and then moving from there. So you want to keep that in mind. Always take a look at those metrics. Just when you're looking at those metrics, when you're starting to look at making sure that the students are leveling up, just as the exit ticket, take a quick glance at those metrics and make sure that they're what you want them to be. Okay. So now you have pruned up your mixed review. You do it at the end of the unit or the end of the grading period. Maybe you're doing it right now because I've reminded you that you want to do that. But make sure you're doing that and you're keeping the skills that resemble mixed review, that resemble state assessment. Because if I'm making sure the students are earning points in mixed review, I want what's in mixed review to continue forward. I mean, think about it. If I'm on unit 6 right now, I have taken out the building block skills from unit 1 through 6. And in April, my students are still practicing the content from unit 1, unit 2, unit 3, unit 4, 5, 6. They're still practicing all of that content that I've covered that resembles state assessment. What are they doing every time they work in mixed review? They're doing state assessment prep. That's what you want. So if spiral review, that mixed review, is what's keeping your students confident, and that's what's breaking the forgetting cycle. The next thing I want you to think about is the way that we assess students. Now, what if I said that cumulative exams will make your students even more confident? Some of you are groaning right now, and it's okay. Don't worry. I'm going to talk to you about how they work. Unit exams. Look at this. This whole screen is representing an entire year using unit exams. Every one of these little sections, that's a unit. Each circle, that's a day. The green piece is mixed review, spiral review. The blue is the lesson, the instruction, and the purple is the assignment. Those orange circles, that's a unit test. At the end of each unit, a test. So if I'm looking at that, if we're using mixed review every day, right? Kids are spiraling through all the content. But on the flip of that, I'm just assessing my students one chapter at a time. Now my students get accustomed to tests that only cover a limited amount of material. If I continue in that pattern all throughout the school year, does that really seem fair to my students? I mean, yes, they're practicing in spiral review. I'm making sure they're ready. They're practicing that content. But if they only take a large test, a cumulative test at the end of the year, are they confident about taking a cumulative test? Or are my students apprehensive when they get to that big test? And I'll tell you, do you not think that sometimes when students hand in that unit exam, they want, oh, let's flush that away. Yes, they're still going to practice that content in mixed review. But think about how those cumulative exams might get a little bigger as the year progresses. So they're used to taking those cumulative tests. I also want to think about how you make a cumulative test. Now, this is a one unit, right? This is my very first unit. And see how I only have the orange there for maybe the first week of the unit? When you get ready for the Unit 1 exam, have your students leveled up the colors of their squares to green or better on the material that you just covered the day before the test, 2 days before the test. Or are you given a unit exam that they had to cram some of that material into their heads, right? So think about it. Maybe only include the material that they've had enough time to level up to green. So that then when I give the second test, I'm going to cover maybe any of the material from the first unit I could put on that second test, and the material from the second unit that my students have had time to level up the colors of their squares. By the time I get to the fourth unit test, then that cumulative test, it's a little bit bigger, right? Because it could include any of the material from the first 3 units and the material from the fourth unit that my students have had time to master. So the exams get a little bit bigger throughout the year until at some point they're going to have to stay at a certain size to be doable in a class period, right? But what's happening? What message am I sending to my students if we're taking cumulative exams? Spiral review every day in class, and now we're taking cumulative tests. What happens to the mindset of your students? I'm going to tell you what happens. They don't see that big test at the end of the year. It's just the last test they're going to take. They've been doing spiral review, mixed review all year. They've been working with those cumulative exams. They've gotten a little bigger throughout the year. It's just another day. State assessment is just another day. Now you're going, okay, so you're making a good argument. I might think about cumulative exams, except they're hard to make. I'm going to tell you, again, I didn't have Get More Math in my classroom, and I did not like making cumulative exams. But you've got Get More Math. Let me show you how quick you can make a cumulative exam. All right. If you have, I'm going to order back my mixed review. And I'm on mixed review on purpose. You're thinking, she's going to make an exam from right here? Yes, I am. I'm going to make a cumulative exam. But remember, I am not going to include this content that I have just recently covered. My students haven't had time to level up the colors of their squares yet. But watch, I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to grab some of these skills that my students have had time to level up the colors of their squares. You see what I'm doing here? I'm scrolling down and I'm checking some of these boxes. Just checking these boxes in front of these skills. In fact, what I'm doing is I'm actually glancing across here at their proficiencies, and I'm grabbing some of those skills that maybe everybody's proficient at, and some maybe that most of my students are proficient at. Now, I'm not clicking anything that I deactivated. I have selected 19 skills. I'm going to click this Actions button, and I'm going to click Create Exam, and I'm going to bring these skills right over here. And I just made a cumulative exam. And listen, I was talking, so it took a little longer. Then we're going to call it Cumulative Exam 8. Whoops, cancel that. From Mixed Review. And you know, you can choose if you want the kids to have same problems, different problems, multiple times to include something. But I just made that cumulative exam. There it is. It's ready to go. And it took me longer because I was talking, right? It's that quick to make a cumulative exam. Now, are you using Get More Math exams and using your exam analysis? I'm coming back over here and I'm going to exams. I've been using cumulative exams, right? So I'm going to go to my cumulative exam 7. And now everybody's got a graded status. That's important that everybody's status is graded because that makes sure I have an exam analysis. I'm going to go here to my exam analysis. I'll talk about remediating from here in a minute, but I'm going to show you another way to make a cumulative exam. So I'm over here in my exam analysis, and I'm going to order by the points that were missed. I am going to take the points that were the most missed, the problems that were the most missed, and I'm going to put them right up here at the top. We'll talk about some remediation from here in a minute. All I'm going to do for now is I'm going to take the items that were the most missed on this exam. I check those boxes, and I'm going to create an assignment. Brings those 3 skills over here, and we're going to call this Most Missed from Exam 7. And I'm going to save this assignment. It's made. It's right up here at the top. I need to drop it into my Unit 7 so that I can show you one more quick way to make a test. We're going to drop it in there to Unit 7. All right. I'm going to refresh that screen so everything's going to show up for me the way I want it to. Now, I made that exam here from Mixed Review. Showed you how to do that. I'm going to show you how to make an exam from over here in Work. Some of you have probably made an exam from over here before, right? You've clicked this blue plus sign. You've clicked Create Exam. We're going to call this our cumulative exam, assuming I could spell, our cumulative exam from Work. We're going to make it from over here in Work. Now, I could go find skills all over again. Don't work that hard. Go down here to click on the Colleagues in My Work button. Go and look at a copy of your own work. All right. Now, remember, I'm in Unit 8. Okay. I'm in Unit 8. I'm making this Unit 8 test, but I'm only going to include the skills that my students have had time to master. So I'm going to include the skills from these 2 assignments because they've had time to master that. These patterns, they haven't had time yet. Now, I made that assignment. Remember, y'all saw me. I made that assignment most missed from Exam 7. Guess what? I have a most missed from Exam 6. I have a most missed from Exam 5. I have a most missed from each one of those unit tests. I have them made and ready to go. And so I can go and I can include the most missed from any of those exams. And look, I have 19 problems. I can choose if the students have same problems or different problems, and I can save that exam. Now I've made 2 cumulative exams in just this short amount of time that we've been talking. So don't be afraid of cumulative exams. I've also included on each of those exams those same skills that my students have been working on in Mixed Review. Now, could I use my exam analysis to monitor my students' progress? Could I use my exam analysis to remediate even? Okay, come over here. I said I was going to show you that, right? In case you didn't know. I have that cumulative exam and I have that analysis. What I didn't do, I clicked those buttons and I made that most missed. What I didn't do was click and expand the skill. I can see which students missed this particular skill. I could do a whole group remediation. I could pull those kids into a small group, just like I did from my mixed review data. I have a sample problem. I have a full screen button, and I can have those students work with pencil and paper and dry erase boards. And I can do my remediation from each one of those exams as well. I want you to keep in mind that you can remediate from looking at the data and get more math. You don't have to go and work hard and go and find something else to make your students do. I could look at each individual student's exam results, and I could see, maybe I gave a beginning of year assessment, a mid-year assessment, an end of year assessment. I can download these results for each of my students. I can, of course, download it from my exam as well, but I can do that from right here for each individual student and monitor their progress, just the same as I can look at progress in mixed review. Okay? So maybe I've convinced you that you want to use cumulative exams. I know you want to use mixed review points. But now that I've told you all these things, I want to make sure you know you can track your students' growth. Because yes, we want to make sure that they're leveling up the colors of their squares, but I want you to see the growth. I want you to know all the places that you can go. I was showing you that exam analysis. I've talked about exit tickets, right? I talked about how the moment that I teach some brand new content, I want to make sure everybody's leveled up to yellow. They got my exit ticket. I also want you to know that the quickest way to take a grade, make sure your students are meeting your expectations right here. You can check that out in points history. Make sure that they're meeting your expectations. I can also go, and of course, I see that class data. I could go here and get that quick pulse for the class. Don't forget that you can do that. Get a quick pulse of how the class is doing on every single skill. But I also have student data metrics. Not only do I have, and if you go to student data, make sure you know that you could use that points earned if you haven't turned on all the columns. Do that. I could use that points earned to run my points contest, one of those motivational strategies. My proficient skills, the percentage of their squares that they've leveled up to green or better. I could check that information out from here. I can see the class assignments, the class exams. I can click on any student's name. I can see their exam results and hear from their mixed review. Let me collapse a couple of these columns, get a little more screen real estate here. If you have not gone to individual student data, am I advocating for doing this all the time? Probably not. You don't have time if you have too many students, but I do want you to know that you can see this individual growth. Now, underneath where it says gold, silver, you want to make sure you turn on all the columns because by default, last five, last correct, those are not turned on. And I need you to do that so you can see these growth measures. I could use my exam analysis. I can also use the color of my students' squares. Let's scroll to one of these that looks really good. Look at this gold star square. How is that a measure of growth? How's the color of the square? It's actually a growth measure the student can see as well. Every square started off red. They leveled up to yellow. They got your exit ticket. Then they've leveled up to green, to silver, to gold over time, right? The color of that square is a built-in growth measure. The other is accuracy compared to the overall accuracy compared to the last 5% accuracy. This student has a 78% accuracy on 36 attempts. But on the last five, what that means, last five, it means on the last 5 attempts, this student's 100%. So while they may have not understood in the beginning, look what they're doing now. That's what I want. I want that last 5 to move towards 100%. So I know they're leveling up the colors of their squares. So you have all these measures of growth that are available to you in Get More Math. I want to make sure that you're taking advantage of them. Don't forget, listen, the most important points come from mixed review. Make sure you're checking. Ooh, let me jump back over here one more time. Make sure you're checking this circle graph for your classes, that the green is equal to the purple or the green is larger than the purple. You want half your points to come from mixed review. How are you going to do that? You're going to use that warm up. You're going to start with mixed review. You're going to end with mixed review. And if that's all you use, that's great. If you use assignments, you're going to use that assignment and make sure that you are setting a goal every day that includes mixed review points. Double the number of points in the assignment. There's where you start for a goal. You're going to keep that mixed review purposeful. You're going to make sure that at the end of each unit or the end of a grading period, you're going to take out those skills, those building block skills, and you're going to leave the ones that look like state assessment. That's how you're going to keep it purposeful. You're going to think about using cumulative exams too. I think cumulative exams help prepare our students because they have a little different mindset that way. Now, I have not checked our questions, and I want to make sure that I am checking if we've had any questions that I need to answer. If we've had anything asked and that I need to jump back to, my apologies. So I did see about printing and listen. I want to make sure that I share with each of you. You can print your mixed review report. See that download button? You can download the class report. I can download from student data the class at a glance for each one of these, and I can download individual student data reports from each of these as well. You can print any of those. So that's important. That you can print all of those. That was a good question. I like that. I would also make sure that when you're keeping this, when you're looking at, I'm looking at a couple of those questions, I'm going to make sure mixed review, when I say keep it purposeful, if it looks like state assessment, I wouldn't turn it off. I need those students to continue to practice that all throughout the year. All right. Here we go. Let's see. Let me jump back over to here because I want to do a few reminders right here. As you're using Get More Math, I hope you know that we have all kinds of ways to support you. You've asked questions today, and that's great. But later you may think, ooh, I have more questions. You send us an email at support@getmoremath.com. Don't forget about the green chat bubble and the teacher resources. If you've forgotten where those are, let me click on current status so you can see it better. See that green chat bubble? Don't forget that you can ask a question anytime there. You can also go to teacher resources. There are all sorts of videos, all sorts of things available to you there within that. So I do want to make sure that you know that that is possible. So keep that in mind, that all of the resources that are available to you. I also want to thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate your time, and reach out again if you have any questions. Have a wonderful day.